Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing my favorite Retro Cup team that I used this week. This team is built around a Pokemon that I didn't really see many people trying, but a Pokemon that I think is very powerful, and that is Shadow Triple Axel Froslass. With the Powder Snow buff this season, Powder Snow deals monster damage. Now, when you add the Shadow damage multiplier and multipliers from boosting with Triple Axel, things can get out of hand very quickly. I do want to give credit to this idea to Philbag, who absolutely destroyed me on ladder with it, and I had so much fun getting to use this Mon. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. We pick up a nice lead in game number 1, Shadow Froslass into Titan. My opponent safe switches into Kingdra, but this is the kind of matchup where Triple Axel on Froslass will shine. Normally, Froslass runs Avalanche, and Shadow Avalanche is incredibly scary neutrally. So a lot of Pokemon like to shield the first, covering for an Avalanche, but the moment they shield a Triple Axel, they're in trouble. I'm able to correctly shield the Outrage, look to ramp up my attack even more. Triple Axel number 2 gets no shielded, but now my Froslass is still pretty healthy, and I'm double boosted. In comes the Titan, I farm up to the Shadow Ball and bait with the Triple Axel. They simply cannot afford to call this bait, as a double boosted Shadow Ball would one-shot. Titan should be one off the Icicle Spear here, so my plan is to try and go for the catch onto my Toxapex. My opponent actually switches as well, so we have a simultaneous switch in, Toxapex into Toxapex. Now this is going to be a bit of a slow mid-game, as neither one of us can really generate a lot of damage, but the good news for me is that I have energy banked on my Shadow Froslass, so if I need it for later, I will have it. In the meantime, we're going to be trading Sludge Waves back and forth. I hope my opponent makes the misplay of throwing early, but they're not going to do that. Instead, they're actually going to CMP time me here right before we both make it to 100 energy. Sludge Wave is going to land. They're firing off their Sludge Wave as well, and I think I have a guaranteed win condition by blind switching into the Kingdra. Kingdra gets up energy, in comes Titan, and I'm going to be CMP tying this Titan with my Swift. Swift is not going to do a ton of damage, but it is going to be getting that Titan very low. Titan is at the back-to-back Icicle Spears now. Icicle Spear number 1 is going to connect, and they immediately follow it up with Icicle Spear number 2. This actually gets undercharged. My opponent wants to get farm on their Toxapex. I can't quite get the Swift, but I saved that Triple Axel from earlier. So in comes Froslass, I fire off the Triple Axel. Triple Axel is going to land on the CMP tie. They hang on 1 HP, but the damage is done. Brine KOs the Froslass. 1 poison jab from my Toxapex will secure the win. We move to the next match, picking up a very nice lead, Shadow Froslass into Shadow Annihilate. If you don't run Triple Axel, then Annihilate can actually just boost up its counters enough to win the 2s. But thanks to Triple Axel, I can boost my Powder Snows right back and ensure that I'm always going to be able to win this matchup. So my opponent fires off the Rage Fist, I return fire with the Triple Axel, and now look at the Powder Snows go. These Powder Snows are melting Annihilate. I'm more than happy to shield up the Froslass and fully farm down. My opponent is going to pivot out of this matchup. In comes Oranguru. Oranguru immediately going to be hit with the Triple Axel. Triple Axel is going to be no shielded, and now I pivot into Kingdra. They farm up a ton of energy, but Kingdra able to make the Swift and winning the CMP tie. Swift gets no shielded, they get knocked out, and from here, I'm feeling pretty good about winning this game. In the back is Licky Licky. I'm going to farm up to the Outrage, and I feel like the safe play is always to go for the bait. If I can guarantee some chip damage, I should be good to take home the win because I have a Triple Axel banked already on my Shadow Froslass from earlier. Licky Licky fires off the Shadow Ball. It's a 1 HP survive. The catch is unsuccessful, and my opponent will concede the match. We've got a mirror lead in the next match, Shadow Froslass versus the regular Froslass. Now, honestly, I didn't really have a game plan for what to do here. I know that Kingdra into Froslass is pretty terrible, so I'm just going to be staying in and playing it out. I put up the shield, I get Avalanche baited, so they're not on Triple Axel, and if they bait, I'm baiting too. But they call the bait, the no shield on the Triple Axel, and this is where things could get very dire. I'm just going straight for another Triple Axel. I need whatever damage I can get. I'm now at +2 attack, which means these Powder Snows are absolutely melting the opposing Froslass. I need to protect this energy, so I put up the shield, and I go for a catch onto Toxapex. So far, this beginning of the match has gone about as poorly as it possibly could, but getting that catch puts me right back in it. Especially when my opponent reveals they do not have a hard check to Toxapex, as they send in Como-O. Como-O has the best charge move in the game, Clanging Scales, but Toxapex is so bulky that I think I can actually survive it. So, I have to hope. Fingers crossed. Clanging Scales is going to land, Toxapex hangs on, Switch Clock comes up, and I get the snipe with the Froslass. They're going to lose 6 Dragon Tails of energy on this Como-O. They send in Hakamo'o as their final Pokemon. They try for a catch. They do not get it. Shadow Froslass with the reverse sweep, and my opponent resigns the match. We get a terrible lead in the next match. Shadow Froslass into Dusknoir. I save switch into Kingdra, and my opponent is going to respond with a Dragon Breath Charizard. This is honestly a pretty good turn of events. My opponent could have probably stayed in with the Dusknoir and destroyed the Kingdra, but by pivoting out into a Glassy Mon that's down energy, they're forced to give up both shields. Kingdra is actually able to make a third Swift in this matchup. Kingdra barely hangs on, KOing the Charizard. Charizard had a very aggressive attempt at a farm down, but unfortunately it backfires in the worst way, and it ends up costing them both shields and switch advantage. I bring Froslass into the Dusknoir because even though these Astonishes are super effective, I'm not going to get knocked out before I make the Triple Axel. Triple Axel will take the KO. In the back is Altaria. Come on, Shadow Froslass. And Shadow Froslass, 3-15-14, the rank 27, hangs on, knocking out Altaria and taking the win. We move to the next game, Shadow Froslass into the regular Froslass. Last time I played out this matchup, I shielded a bait, and then my opponent ruthlessly called my bait. I try and go for the CMP tie, but I'm a very high rank, so that's a CMP tie that I'm not going to win. This Froslass is on Avalanche as well, very interesting. And I'm now going to return fire with the Triple Axel bait, and they call it again. They no shield, but save switch into a Fury Cutter Golisopod. So that bait call could have ruined me, but my opponent instantly switched out afterwards into the Golisopod, and now I'm right back in the game. I was able to rebank a Triple Axel, and unfortunately for the Golisopod, it's just getting absolutely destroyed by Toxapex. Golisopod fires off Aqua Jet after Aqua Jet, but man, Toxapex is just an absolute brick wall. My plan here is not even to throw the Sludge Wave. I want residual energy on the Toxapex for when eventually I assume they're going to bring back in the Froslass. So my plan is to go for a Brine and a farm down. Golisopod does make a last second Aqua Jet, but we've established this really doesn't do a lot of damage, so I'm more than happy to let that go. Instead, I'm going to get aggressive, pivoting into the Froslass. My opponent sends out Crustle, and Crustle is so far behind on energy. Shadow Froslass going for the Triple Axel. They no-shield the first, but suddenly they're at risk of getting fully farmed down. Another Triple Axel from the Froslass, another shield from the Crustle, and suddenly these Powder Snows look super effective. Crustle fires off the X-Scissor bait. Are they even going to get to another move? They are not. They're forced to pivot into the Froslass. Unfortunately, Switch Clock was not quite available, so I'm unable to get the catch. Avalanche will take the knockout, but I can send in Kingdra. They're very close to a move, so we may as well catch it onto the Toxapex. Toxapex energy, not really going to matter in this one, because Kingdra should make the back-to-back Swifts. In comes Crustle, and look how low Crustle is. Crustle just got destroyed by those boosted Powder Snows. Swift will be shielded, but there's more where that came from. Kingdra with Swift number 2 locked and loaded. Down goes Crustle, and even with completely botching the Froslass mirror both times, we're still able to get the win. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Shadow Froslass into Shadow Annihilate. This matchup very nice for Triple Axel Froslass. The only reason I know that non-Triple Axel Froslass can get countered down is because the first game that I played with Froslass, I forgot to TM it. I led into an Annihilate, and I got just destroyed by the counters. But with Triple Axel, we're in a pretty nice spot. It looks like my opponent's Annihilate is a lot higher ranked than the first opponent's because they're able to survive a lot more Powder Snows. I still exit with a ton of energy and heavily boosted. In comes Crustle. Crustle is going to get absolutely deleted here. Triple Axel is going to be shielded. Crustle looking for a farm down that it's not going to get. This is double boosted. It's a Shadow Ball. That's a one-hit knockout. In the back is Regidrago, and my opponent will concede the match. Hopping into the next match, we get a great lead, Shadow Froslass into Dragonair. Dragonair gonna stay in, grab a shield with Aqua Tail, and then presumably look to pivot out. They can't afford to stay in any longer. Their Powder Snows are gonna hit way too hard. In comes Licky Licky, and I bank a ton of energy on the Froslass before sending in Toxapex. At this point, I don't even really care to have switch advantage. My only goal is just to try and maximize Froslass energy, and then use Toxapex for what it's best at, playing zero shield matchups and being bulky at absorbing hits. So I'm going to be full sending here. I want to try and lock in some damage on Licky Licky and try and punish an O-Shield. Sludge Wave is going to land, Licky Licky barely able to hang on. In comes Dragonair, and Dragonair is going to be hit with the Brine. They should expect me to combo here, so I'm actually just going to stay in, and they do predict the combo. They fire off the Aqua Tail, anticipating the Froslass snipe, but I just stay on the field. Now I can farm them down with the Froslass. I have all the energy I could ever ask for, and there's nothing they could have in the back that would win this game. They're waiting down the timer. They send in Toxapex. I should have clicked Shadow Ball. I accidentally clicked Triple Axel. The good news is it's just simply not going to matter because I have that much energy. And now it's boosted energy on the Froslass. Froslass, Shadow Ball is going to be shielded. I'm going to make the Shadow Ball on the CMP tie, and this is just over. Boosted Shadow Ball, big damage. Toxapex almost gets one hit KO'd. Toxapex able to hang on deep into the red HP, but in comes Kingdra with a shield advantage, and that just simply doesn't lose in this meta. Shadow Froslass into Grumpig in the next match. This is a pretty nice matchup for the Shadow Froslass. My advice here is just to never throw Shadow Ball. Even if your opponent ends up calling the Triple Axel bait, being able to boost yourself up and farm down really ends up making it worthwhile to fire off Triple Axels. So I shield Dynamic Punch bait, I fire off the Triple Axel, and my opponent will put up the shield. Now I can go for Triple Axel number 2, and my opponent's going to realize they're just getting outpaced in this matchup. Triple Axel is going to land, they get KO'd, and now I'm double boosted. In comes Furret looking for a farm down that they're not going to get. Rank 27 Shadow Froslass hangs on, makes a double boosted Triple Axel, and forces my opponent's final shield. In the back, they have Galarian Corsola. This is a Pokemon my team is extraordinarily weak to. However, being up a shield, this is the advantage that I need to actually take home this win. Kingdra will make the Outrage. Outrage will hit for some big damage, but it's not going to be enough to take the KO. Unfortunately, I'm not going to get to a second Outrage. I'm getting fully farmed down. However, I will make a last second Swift because at this point, they're low enough that even Swift is valuable damage. There's a switch into Furret. Furret does have a lot of energy, but I know that if I just save the shield for the move from the Corsola, I can't lose. My opponent will CMP tie. They Brick Break first, trying to lock in as much damage as they possibly can, but unfortunately, there's just no way around Toxapex. Toxapex is just a brick wall in the zeros. Sludge Wave lands. We get the farm down. Back in comes the Corsola, and that gets farmed down as well. Oh my goodness, we get the dream lead in the next match, Shadow Froslass into Altaria. My opponent safe switches into Grumpig, but this is not a hard check to Froslass. At this point, I'm not even building up to the Shadow Wall. I just want damage, so I go straight for the Triple Axel, and my opponent ends up shielding anyway. The Psywaves do a lot of damage to Shadow Froslass, so over time, if they play out the 2s, I am going to get very, very low, but I'm not exactly weak to Altaria in the back. Kingdra and Toxapex both can do pretty okay there. I get to go for another Triple Axel, down goes Grumpig, and I'm still just so healthy and double boosted. My opponent reveals their final Pokemon, it's Furret, and for the second time in 2 games, a Furret tries to farm down, and they're unable to do so. Triple Axel lands, Furret almost gets one shot, Toxapex gets brought in, Altaria is met with Kingdra, and my opponent will resign the match. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Shadow Froslass against Shadow Dragonair. My opponent safe switches into an incredibly cool pick. This is Shadow Lapras. I bank a Triple Axel for later and send in Toxapex, as I assume they're going to be Sparkling Aria and Ice Beam and fully walled here. But they're not. They're on Skull Bash, and suddenly, this game could get very out of hand. I'm expecting they're going to put up a shield here and invest in the Lapras. So I fire off a Brine bait, and they call my bait. And this is just going from bad to worse. Lapras can now just go for the Sparkling Aria. Sparkling Aria will take the KO, and I'm going to have to get creative if I want a chance to win this game. And the creativity starts with 100 Kingdra energy. I send in the Kingdra. I'm going to shield the Skull Bash and look to fully farm down. So the Skull Bash is shielded. They're not making it to another Skull Bash. My opponent switches out, and they switch back into the Dragonair. But importantly, they banked a Sparkling Aria for later in the game. Outrage lands, one hit KO, and it's going to be Furret in the back. They have 2 shields. I'm going for the bait here. I fire off the Swift, and they call the bait again. Oh my goodness, I'm in absolute shambles. I've had so many win gons, and I think I'm going to end up losing to all these bait calls. But Kingdra has a plan. 1 HP survived to make the last second Swift. Swift gets Furret low, and I quick switch into the Froslass. I'm going to be no shielding here, as the Sparkling Aria will do more. They go for the Trailblaze. I can't quite get the farm down, and unfortunately, I'm forced to put up the shield. That Powder Snow KO, and I'm going to CMP tie Triple Axel to their Sparkling Aria. This will allow me to get 1 extra hit point of damage, and I think this game is going to end in a tie, because I'm in range of 1 Psywave, they're in range of 1 Dragon Breath, I bring in the Kingdra, but I 1 turn lag, and instead of a tie, it's going to be a loss. After that disastrous last game, we're looking for a little bit of redemption, and what a lead to do so, as we end up leading into Grumpig. Grumpig, they always bait with Dynamic Punch, but even a Dynamic Punch just does way too much damage to Shadow Froslass, so I'm more than happy to put up the shield. Grumpig calls the triple Axel bait. That's a very astute play from my opponent. They make another Dynamic Punch, but I'm going down swinging. I am double shielding my boosted Froslass. Froslass will get the full farm down. They're going to be sending in Hakamo'o. They must have double Dragon in the back if this is what they're sending in. Triple Axel is going to land in the back. Oh no, traitor! It's Altaria. Let's see how much Powder Snow damage we can get. I'm now going to be triple boosted. Look at the Powder Snows go. They lose an entire Altaria. I get to send in Toxapex just to absorb the Sky Attack. And this is just absolute shambles. In comes Hakamo'o. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Hopping into the final match, we've got a bit of a tricky lead. Shadow Froslass into Lunatone. Lunatone can inflict deadly damage onto pretty much this entire team. And they can very safely Weather Ball Ice bait Froslass because Froslass can't really afford to get that guess wrong and get one-shotted by a Rock Slide. So I end up shielding a bait. My opponent's able to outpace as a result of that bait, and I'm forced to burn my final shield on another Weather Ball. Oh, this is absolutely dreadful. I'm going to try and preserve the Froslass if my opponent ends up shielding, because usually Lunatone has dragons in the back. So I'm able to bank some energy and then send in Kingdra. Kingdra's going to get rocked by a Rock Slide, but afterwards should be able to get a farm down. Kingdra tries for a farm down, but Lunatone with the 1 HP. I cannot get rid of the moon. They KO Kingdra, and I bring back in the Froslass. If it's not dragons in the back, I'm going to be in quite a bit of trouble. I'm very close to the triple Axel. In comes Hakamo'o, and Hakamo'o is about to get absolutely shredded. Triple Axel into Hakamo'o is going to land. Hakamo'o can't quite get farmed down. In comes Altaria. Altaria farms me, but the Powder Snows have hopefully put it into Sludge Wave range. Question will be, I know the Hakamo'o is low. Can it make a move? If Hakamo'o can make a move, then my opponent has played their way out. I make the Sludge Wave. It's a CMP tie, and that's really not great. Now I'm definitely in range of a Rock Tomb. Sludge Wave should be just about knocking out the Altaria here. It's going to be close. Altaria hangs on. In comes Hakamo'o. They do not get there, and we farm down everything to secure the win. All in all, I had so much fun getting to run Triple Axel Froslass this Retro Cup. I ended up really enjoying the Retro Cup meta. I felt like it overall started off as a meta where people were kind of worried about Furret and Oranguru, but over time, the meta ended up developing into something more interesting, where it became a lot more Ice and Dragon focused, and a lot more focused on how you manage your energy, which I did find to be a pretty enjoyable meta. I know with League rotation coming up, I believe we have Ultra Premier and the Open Great League back. Feels like it's been a while since we've had the Open Great League, so I'm excited to have that format back, but also Ultra Premier. I have so many weird builds for the Ultra League that don't really see a lot of play, so I'm excited to run some pretty suspect mods in the Ultra Premier Cup, and we'll see which ones can actually get wins. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.